Before I say anything, I want you to notice something. Notice the noise. Not external noise necessarily, though there may be some of that too. I mean the noise inside, the commentary running beneath everything, the low hum of thoughts that never quite stops, the replaying of yesterday, the rehearsing of tomorrow, the constant, restless inner monologue that most of us have become so accustomed to that we barely notice it anymore. It's there right now. Even as you read this, even as some part of you is trying to be still and receive what's here, the noise is there. And for most of us, that noise has become so familiar, so constant, so woven into the fabric of our daily experience that we have come to mistake it for thinking, for processing, for the necessary activity of an engaged and functional mind. But it isn't thinking. Not really. Most of it is repetition. The same loops, cycling, the same fears in different clothes, the same stories about who you are and what's possible and what you need to do and what you should have done differently. Playing on a loop day after day, year after year, with only the surface details changing. And here is what I want to offer you today. The thing that takes a moment to land, but when it does, changes everything. That noise, that relentless internal commentary, is not neutral. It is not simply the sound of a busy mind going about its business. It is a frequency. It is, in fact, the primary frequency you are broadcasting into the field of your reality. Not your affirmations, not your visualizations, not the intentions you set on Sunday mornings, or the things you write in your journal. The noise. The constant, barely examined, largely unconscious stream of thought energy that runs beneath everything. And if that stream is carrying fear, doubt, unworthiness, lack, as most people's inner noise is most of the time, then that is the signal going out. That is what the field is responding to. That is what is shaping your experience. Not your conscious intentions, your unconscious noise. This is why so many people do all the right things, all the practices, all the work, all the effort, and still find that nothing fundamental changes, because they are trying to plant seeds of a new reality into soil that the noise is poisoning before anything can grow. Today we are going to talk about silence, real silence. Not the absence of sound, but the quieting of the stream, the stilling of the inner noise, and why that silence, that genuine, practiced, embodied quiet, is the single most powerful thing you can do to shift your frequency and transform your experience of reality. Not an affirmation, not a visualization, not a technique. Silence. Let's begin. I want to start by talking about affirmations, because most people exploring conscious creation have tried them. Many have tried them earnestly, repeatedly, hopefully, and many have been quietly disappointed. The affirmation was supposed to be the tool, the key, the way of reprogramming the mind, of replacing the old negative beliefs with new positive ones. You stand at your mirror and you say the words, "I am abundant, I am worthy, I am loved, everything I want is flowing to me now." You say them with conviction, you say them with feeling, or the best imitation of feeling you can manage. You say them every day for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. And sometimes, something shifts. Sometimes the practice generates genuine momentum and real changes follow. But often it doesn't. Often what happens instead is subtler and more disheartening. You say the affirmation, and somewhere in the body, something quietly contradicts it. "I am abundant," you say aloud, and from somewhere beneath the words, something whispers, "No, you're not. Look at your bank account. Look at your life. Who are you trying to fool?" You push through the contradiction. You've been told to push through. that the resistance is part of the process, that you have to keep going until the new belief overwrites the old one. But the resistance doesn't go away, and the affirmation starts to feel hollow, like words being spoken by a part of you that doesn't quite believe them, to a part of you that sees straight through the performance. Why does this happen? Because affirmations work at the level of the conscious mind. They are thoughts, deliberate, chosen, crafted thoughts, that you are attempting to install in a system that runs mostly on something much older and much more deeply embedded than thought. Your frequency, your actual broadcast into the field, is not generated by your conscious thoughts. It is generated by your beliefs, by the felt sense of reality that lives in your body, in your nervous system, in the programs that were written before you had language. And those programs are not in your conscious mind. They are not accessible to affirmations. They don't speak the language of words. They speak the language of silence, of felt experience, of the quality of inner quiet or inner noise. That underlies everything. This is what the great contemplative traditions have known for thousands of years. This is what every wisdom lineage from every corner of the world has been pointing at, in its own language, in its own cultural frame. The ancient yogis called it chitta vritti nirodha, the stilling of the fluctuations of the mind field. The Taoists called it wu wei, effortless action arising from inner stillness. The Christian mystics called it via negativa, the way of emptying, of becoming quiet enough to hear what was always already present. They were all pointing at the same thing. The power that generates reality is not located in the words we speak to ourselves. It is located in the silence beneath the words, in the quality of awareness that underlies the noise, in the frequency of the field from which the noise arises, and to which, in genuine silence, we return. In that field, that silent, aware, preconceptual ground of your being is not empty. It is not a void. It is the most densely alive, the most potently creative, the most powerfully generative state available to a human being. It is the source, and silence is the way home to it. Now, I want to be careful here because I am not saying that words are useless. That language has no power, that affirmations are a waste of time for everyone, always. What I am saying is that the words rest on something. They are either growing in fertile soil or being planted in ground that cannot support them, and the fertility of that soil, the quality of the inner ground from which your frequency is broadcast, is determined not by the words you consciously choose, but by the silence or noise that underlies them. A single moment of genuine inner silence in which you touch the ground of your own being does more for your frequency than an hour of affirmation spoken from a mind that is still running the old noise. Not because silence is mystically superior to words, but because silence is where the actual shift happens, at the level of the field itself, in the pre-verbal, pre-conceptual ground where belief actually lives. Let's look more closely at the noise, because understanding what it's actually doing at the level of frequency is what makes the invitation to silence feel less like deprivation and more like liberation. Your inner mental noise is not random. If you sit with it long enough, if you become genuinely still enough to observe it without being swept away by it, you begin to see that it has patterns, recurring themes, emotional signatures that appear again and again, wearing different surface clothes but carrying the same underlying frequency. For most people, the dominant themes of the inner noise fall into a handful of categories. There is the planning and controlling noise, the part of the mind that is perpetually trying to manage the future, running through scenarios, anticipating problems, preparing responses to conversations that haven't happened yet, trying to stay one step ahead of a world that feels, at some level, unpredictable and potentially unsafe. There is the reviewing and judging noise, the part that is perpetually replaying the past, What was said, what should have been said, what went wrong, who was at fault, what it means about you, what it means about other people. The endless courtroom of the internal critic. There is the comparing and measuring noise. The part that is constantly assessing your position relative to others. Am I ahead or behind? Am I enough or not enough? Do I have more or less than I should? And there is, beneath all of these, a more fundamental noise. A background frequency that all the other noise is, in a sense, a response to. An old, deep, chronic hum of, something is not quite right, something is missing. I am not quite safe. Asterisk. That background hum. That fundamental frequency of low-grade threat and incompleteness is the noise that matters most, because it is the one that is always on, the one that is broadcasting into the field continuously, regardless of what your conscious thoughts are doing. Regardless of your affirmations and your intentions and your practices, it is the carrier wave beneath everything else. And here is what that carrier wave is doing to your reality. It is keeping you in a state of perpetual readiness for threat. Your nervous system, receiving this frequency from within, interprets it as a signal that something dangerous is present or approaching. It responds accordingly, staying slightly contracted, slightly vigilant, slightly defended. And in that state of contraction and vigilance, your perception narrows. We talked about this before. The way fear closes the aperture of awareness. But what we're examining now is the chronic version of this, not the acute fear response that arises in moments of genuine danger, but the low-grade, persistent background threat frequency that never fully resolves. When you live in that frequency, and most people do, most of the time, without even knowing it, you are continuously broadcasting the signal of threat, lack, and incompleteness. And the field is continuously reflecting that signal back. Not dramatically, not as a series of disasters, but as a subtle, persistent coloring of your experience. As the feeling that things are just slightly off, that ease is always just out of reach, that the next thing will finally feel like arrival, but somehow never quite does. That is the noise at work. And here is the thing that makes silence so radical, so powerful, so completely unlike anything else in the consciousness toolkit. When you become genuinely still, when the noise reduces, even briefly, even partially, that background hum quiets. And in its absence, something else is revealed. Something that was always there beneath the noise, running silently, available, and unchanged, but masked by the continuous broadcast of the threat frequency. A ground of okayness, a fundamental, unchosen, unconditional sense of being that does not depend on circumstances, that is not damaged by failure or enlarged by success, that has never been touched by the things that have happened to you, even the most difficult ones. That is, in the most literal sense, your original frequency, the signal you came in with, the clear, uncontaminated broadcast of a being who is simply, without condition, without qualification, here. Silence reveals this, not creates it. It was always there. Silence simply removes what was covering it. And when you touch it, even for a moment, even just a glimpse, your frequency changes. Not because you've done something, because you've become still enough to remember what you actually are. And from that remembering, everything else shifts. Now, I want to make a distinction that is important, because silence is not one thing. There are different qualities of silence, and not all of them do what we're describing. There is the silence of avoidance, the quiet that comes from numbing out, from dissociation, from the mind becoming blank, not because it has found stillness, but because it has retreated into a kind of low-grade fog. This is the silence of the person staring at their phone for hours, the silence of the third glass of wine, the silence of sleep that is less rest than escape. This silence is not what we're talking about. This silence is the noise having been temporarily suppressed, pushed beneath consciousness rather than genuinely stilled. And suppressed noise always resurfaces, often louder than before. There is the silence of distraction, the quiet mind that has been occupied by something else, absorbed in a film, a task, a conversation, and has, for the duration of that absorption, stopped generating its usual noise. This silence is genuine as far as it goes. Absorption and flow states are real. They genuinely quiet the inner chatter, and in doing so, produce many of the same felt benefits as meditation. But they are dependent on the external object of attention. When the film ends, when the task is complete, when the conversation stops, the noise returns. Because nothing has actually shifted at the level of the carrier wave. The background hum is still running. It was simply temporarily inaudible. Then there is the silence of genuine stillness. The silence that comes not from suppression or distraction, but from the direct, conscious, practiced turning of attention toward the silence itself. The silence that is its own destination, not a byproduct of something else. This is the silence of meditation, of contemplation, of what some traditions call presence, the state of being fully, consciously, deliberately here, without the overlay of past or future, without the noise of the internal commentary, without the ceaseless effort to make this moment into something other than what it is. This silence is what we're after, and I want to be honest with you about it. It doesn't come easily at first, especially not in a culture that has been systematically conditioning us toward distraction for decades, especially not for a mind that has been running its particular noise patterns for years. But it comes with practice, with patience, with a gentle, consistent, non-judgmental act of returning, again and again and again, to the quiet. And even before it comes fully, even in the early stages of practice, when the silence is more aspiration than reality, when the noise keeps returning the moment you try to still it, even then something shifts, because the intention to be still is itself a different frequency than the noise. The direction of attention towards silence, even when it doesn't fully arrive, is a movement toward the carrier wave of okayness. And that movement, however small, changes the signal. You don't have to master silence to benefit from it. You just have to begin turning toward it. Before we go into the meditation today, which is going to be longer and deeper than our last one together, I want to address something that almost everyone encounters when they first begin this practice. The noise gets louder. When you sit down to be still, the noise does not politely subside and make way for the silence. It often at first becomes more noticeable than ever. Thoughts rush in. The mind becomes almost frantic, generating more thoughts, more plans, more worries, more commentary, as though it senses that its dominance is being threatened and is trying to reassert itself. This is not failure. This is not a sign that you are bad at this, that silence is not available to you, that the practice isn't working. This is what the mind does when it first encounters the invitation to be still. It is a completely normal, completely temporary phase of the process. Here is how to work with it. Don't fight the noise. Don't try to suppress it, eliminate it, or force it to stop. Resistance amplifies. What you fight, you feed. Instead, simply observe it. Become the witness of the noise rather than the one inside the noise. Step back within your own awareness and watch the thoughts the way you might watch clouds passing across the sky. You are not the clouds, you are the sky. The thoughts are passing through your awareness. They are not your awareness itself. This distinction between the contents of consciousness and consciousness itself is the key to everything. It is the insight that makes genuine silence possible, not as a blank emptiness, but as a vast, spacious, aware presence that contains the noise without being defined by it. You are the space in which the noise occurs, and the space, your actual nature as awareness, is already silent, already still, already in the most fundamental sense, at peace. Silence is not something you achieve. It is something you uncover, something you return to. It is already here, already present, already the ground you are standing on, even when the noise is covering it so completely that you've forgotten it exists. The practice is simply the act of remembering, again and again, returning, again and again, home. I want to invite you now into the practice itself. Find a position that is comfortable but alert. Sitting is ideal. Not so relaxed that you drift, but not so rigid that the body becomes the distraction. Let your hands rest open in your lap, palms facing upward. This is not a symbolic gesture. It is a physical reminder to your nervous system of the frequency we explored in our last conversation. The open hand, the receiving posture. Take a breath, not a performed breath, just let the body breathe. And as it breathes, let your eyes close. Feel the weight of your body, the specific, particular, real sensation of you here, in this chair, in this room, in this moment. Not a concept of your body, the actual felt reality of it. The temperature of your hands, the points of contact between your body and the surface beneath you, the slight rise and fall of your chest. You are here, fully, actually, completely here. Pause. Now. Without effort, without forcing anything. Begin to notice the noise. Don't engage with it. Don't follow any particular thought. Just notice that there is activity in the mind. A stream of something, thoughts, images, fragments of plans or memories or commentary. Simply notice, there is noise here. Pause. And now, gently, without effort, step back from it. Imagine that you are moving one step behind your thoughts, not away from them, not suppressing them, just slightly behind, in the position of the one who notices, rather than the one who is noticed. You are the awareness watching the noise, not the noise itself. Pause. From this slightly more spacious position, feel the quality of the awareness itself, the noticing, the witnessing. Does the awareness have a quality, a texture? It tends to be quiet, spacious, still. Not because anything dramatic has happened, but because awareness by its nature is still. It is the background against which the noise moves. And the background, when you turn toward it, rather than toward the noise it contains, is silence. Stay here for a moment. Just here, in the witnessing, in the awareness, in the still ground beneath the noise. You don't have to make anything happen. You don't have to maintain anything. Simply, be the awareness that you already are. Now, from this place of quiet witnessing, I want to invite something in. Not a thought, not an image of what you want, something more fundamental than either. A feeling, the feeling of being, simply, completely, without condition. Okay. Not the okayness that comes from having everything in order, not the relief of a problem resolved or a fear laid to rest, but the deeper okayness, the ground level okayness that was there before any problem arose, that will be there after every problem resolves. The okayness of existence itself. Pause. Can you feel it? Even a whisper of it? Even the faintest suggestion of a ground of being that is, in its very nature, undisturbed? It doesn't have to be dramatic. It doesn't have to be blissful. It might feel very ordinary, very quiet, almost unnoticeable. That's it. That quiet, ordinary, almost unnoticeable sense of simply being here. That is it. That is the ground. That is what the noise has been covering. That is what was always present beneath every affirmation, in every effort, in every reaching towards something that would finally make things feel okay. It was here the whole time. Let yourself rest in this for a few breaths, not making anything of it, not deciding what it means or what it will produce or how you're going to use it, just being in it, being it. Now, very gently, from this ground of okayness, from this place of silent, aware, undisturbed presence, let something come forward. Not a goal, not a desired outcome, but a quality of life you want to inhabit. One word or the feeling of one word. Something like ease or connection, or abundance, or aliveness, or love. Let it arise naturally from the silence, rather than being chosen by the thinking mind. Whatever arises, let it be present in the silence. Don't reach for it. Don't build a narrative around it. Just let the quality of it rest in the field of your awareness. Pause. Feel how different this is from wanting. There is no reaching in it, no lack, no urgency. It is a quality of being held by the silence, in the presence of what is wanted, without grasping. This precise inner state is the frequency that the field responds to most completely. Not the desperate wanting, not the performed believing. The genuine, silent, grounded presence of a being who is already whole, resting in awareness, holding their desire with open hands. This is the most powerful signal you can broadcast, and you have just broadcast it. Stay here as long as feels right. There is no rush, no destination, nowhere to get to. When you're ready, in your own time, let a deeper breath come. Let it bring you gently back to the room, back to the sound of my voice, back to the particular, beautiful, specific moment of your ordinary life. Pause. Welcome back. What you just experienced, however completely or partially, however deeply or shallowly, is not a special state. It is not a peak experience available only to advanced meditators or spiritual adepts. It is your natural state. It is what is always present beneath the noise, what has always been present, what will always be present. And the more you return to it, the more you practice the simple, patient, non-dramatic act of turning towards silence rather than toward noise, the more accessible it becomes. The more quickly you can find it, the more fully you inhabit it, even in the middle of ordinary life, even in the middle of difficulty, even when the noise is loud. Because here is what changes with practice, not the noise. The noise will always arise in one form or another for as long as you are a human being living in a complex world. What changes is your relationship to it, your capacity to be present with the noise without being consumed by it, to notice it without becoming it, to remain at some level in the witnessing, in the silence beneath, even while the noise is happening. This is what the traditions call equanimity, and it is not a flat, affectless, emotionally numb state. It is a deeply alive, richly responsive, fully feeling state, one in which emotions are experienced completely, without the overlay of resistance or reactivity, in which life is met as it is rather than as the noise insists it must be interpreted. From that state, from that ground of silent, aware equanimity, your frequency is clean. There is no interference in the signal, no unconscious noise contaminating the broadcast. What you are sending out into the field is the genuine, clear, unadulterated frequency of your actual inner state. And when your inner state is one of grounded okayness, of spacious awareness, of the quiet confidence that comes from touching your own ground. The field reflects that back with extraordinary precision. Now, how do you build this in daily life? How do you take the experience of this meditation and weave it into the texture of a normal day that has meetings and traffic and difficult conversations and 100 things competing for your attention? Here is the approach that works. Start small, stay consistent, never skip without returning. You do not need an hour of meditation every morning. You do not need a dedicated practice space or a specific cushion or a particular technique. What you need is 5 minutes of genuine turning towards silence every day, without exception. 5 minutes in which you do nothing else, in which you ask nothing of yourself except this: turn toward the stillness. Be the witness. Return as many times as necessary, from the noise to the awareness beneath it. That is all. 5 minutes. And the reason I say never skip without returning is this: the power of this practice comes from its consistency, not its intensity. A daily 5 minutes is infinitely more transformative than an occasional hour, because the daily practice builds a relationship, a living, growing, deepening familiarity with your own silence that compounds over time in ways that a sporadic intensive practice simply cannot. You are not trying to achieve a state in your 5 minutes. You are simply keeping a daily appointment with your own ground, saying every day, I know you are here. I am returning. I have not forgotten. And the ground, the silence, deepens its availability to you in response. It learns to come forward more quickly, more reliably, more fully, because you have kept the appointment, because you have shown up. Beyond the formal 5 minutes, there are informal practices, ways of carrying the silence with you through the day. The one breath return, in any moment of stress, of reactivity, of noticing the noise has become loud. Take one conscious breath. That single breath is a signal to the nervous system. It is the gesture of the witness reasserting itself. It will not deliver you fully into the silence, but it will loosen the grip of the noise, and loosening is enough. Loosening is the beginning of the return, the silence between words. In conversations, in meetings, in the space between one thing and the next. Instead of immediately filling the gap with thought or activity, rest briefly in the space between. The space between the question and the answer. The space between finishing one task and beginning the next. The silence between the end of one sentence and the beginning of the next. These spaces are everywhere once you begin to notice them, and each one is an opening, a small door back to the ground. The evening review. At the end of each day, before sleep, take 3 minutes of silence. Not review of the day, not planning tomorrow. Just 3 minutes of being with yourself, of returning to the witness, of acknowledging without words, I am here. The day is complete. I return to my ground. This practice has a particular power at the threshold of sleep because the subconscious mind, the part that actually holds your frequency, is most permeable in the moments just before sleep. What you bring to that threshold colors the hours of rest that follow, and silence brought to the threshold of sleep carries the frequency of okayness into the hours when the conscious mind is quietest and the deep programming is most available to shift. I want to offer a reframe now that I hope will change your relationship to the noise, not just as a problem to be solved, but as something more surprising. The noise is a teacher, not in spite of being an interference in your signal, because of exactly what it carries. Every repetitive thought loop in your inner chatter is pointing at something. Every recurring fear, every persistent doubt, every theme that keeps returning in different forms. Each one is an arrow pointing toward a belief, a frequency, something that is running in the background of your system that has not yet been brought into the light of conscious awareness. The noise, in other words, is your unconscious speaking. Not clearly, not directly, not in plain language, but in the coded, symbolic, emotionally charged language of repetitive thought. It is constantly telling you what it believes, what it fears, what it is still holding from old experience that colors every new moment. And if you learn to listen to it, not to be swept away by it, but to listen to it from the position of the witness, with compassionate curiosity rather than resistance or identification, it becomes one of the most valuable sources of self-knowledge available to you. Here is how you do this. When you notice a recurring thought pattern, a theme that keeps arising, a loop that seems to play on repeat, instead of trying to stop it or replace it with a better thought, you get curious about it. You ask, what does this noise believe? Not what it's saying, what it believes, at the deepest level, in the most fundamental terms. The noise that says, I'll never have enough money believes, resources are scarce and I am not resourced. I am not safe in the world of material reality. I have to scramble for what I need. The noise that says nobody really sees me believes, I am fundamentally alone. My real self is not the kind of thing other people can love or value. I have to perform a version of myself that is more acceptable, and even then, I'm not sure it's enough. The noise that says, what's the point? It never works out. Believes, the world is not responsive to me. My desires don't matter. I am not the kind of person for whom good things reliably happen. These are not random thoughts. These are the operating beliefs of a nervous system doing its best to navigate a world that it learned at some point was unsafe or insufficient. And when you can see them clearly, when you can identify the belief beneath the noise rather than simply experiencing the noise as weather, you have something to work with. You can bring compassion to it. You can breathe into the belief and feel where it lives in the body. You can ask gently, when did I learn this? Where did this come from? How old is this belief really? And you can begin, slowly, not through effort, but through sustained compassionate awareness, to dissolve its charge, to let the belief lose its grip, not by replacing it with a better belief, but by seeing it so clearly, with so much understanding of where it came from and what it was trying to protect, that it simply no longer has the power to run unchallenged. This is the deepest work silence makes possible. Not the silence of an empty mind, but the silence of a spacious mind. One that is still enough to hear what the noise is actually saying without being consumed by it. That can listen with curiosity instead of reacting with resistance. The noise, listened to this way, becomes the map of your own inner terrain, the guide to every place in you that is still running old frequency, every doorway through which genuine transformation is still available. And each time you bring one of those old beliefs into the light, each time you meet it with compassion and understanding rather than shame or resistance, the carrier wave shifts. The background hum loses a little of its charge. The ground of okayness becomes a little more audible beneath it. This is the true alchemy of silence. Not the absence of noise, but the transformation of what the noise carries. The gradual, patient, compassionate work of bringing the unconscious into consciousness, of listening to what has been unheard, of meeting what has been unfelt, until the day. And it comes for those who persist. When you sit down in your silence and realize that the noise, while still present, has lost its grip, that the background hum has softened, that the ground is louder than what covers it. That day, everything looks different. Not because the world has changed, because you can finally hear yourself beneath it. Let's talk about what actually begins to shift in your outer life when the inner silence deepens. Because I don't want this to remain in the abstract. I want you to know what you're building toward, what becomes possible on the other side of the noise. The first thing that shifts is clarity. When the noise is running at full volume, your decision-making is compromised. Not because you're unintelligent, but because the noise is constantly adding its own input, fear-based, pattern-based, past-oriented, to every situation. You cannot hear your own knowing beneath the cacophony. You mistake the voice of the old program for the voice of genuine wisdom. And so you make decisions that perpetuate the old frequency rather than opening into the new one. As the silence deepens, the voice of genuine knowing becomes audible, not the noise masquerading as intuition, the loud, urgent, insistent voice of fear dressed as guidance, but the quieter, calmer, more reliable knowing that arises from the ground itself. The one that doesn't shout, that doesn't insist, that is simply there, available, clear. That voice will not tell you what the noise tells you. It will not catastrophize. It will not run the old loops. It will offer something much more useful, the next right step. Simple, specific, often surprising, always precise. This is what people mean when they talk about following their intuition. Not the anxious second-guessing of a noisy mind pretending to be wise. The genuine, quiet knowing of a being in contact with its own ground. The second thing that shifts is presence. The noise takes you out of the moment, always. It is, by its nature, oriented toward the past or the future, toward what happened or what might happen, toward what was said or what should be said. It is rarely, genuinely in the actual present moment. And the actual present moment is where life is. It is the only place anything has ever happened or ever will happen. It is the only dimension in which change is possible, in which connection is real, in which the field is accessible. When the noise quiets, even partially, even in flickers, you arrive in the present, and in the present, the quality of everything shifts. Food tastes different. Conversations become richer. You notice the light in a room, the expression on a face, the particular quality of this breath, this moment, this unrepeatable now. And from that presence, your signal is clear, because you are broadcasting not a memory or an anticipation, but an actual, current, real inner state. In the field, responding to that real inner state can reflect something real back. The third thing that shifts is relationships. This one surprises people. They think that going inward, that a practice of silence and inner stillness will make them more withdrawn, more separate, less connected. But the opposite is true. The noise makes you less present with other people. It means that when someone is speaking to you, part of you is in the commentary, judging, comparing, planning your response, assessing whether this person is safe or threatening or useful or irrelevant. You are not fully there, and people feel it. They may not be able to name it, but they feel the quality of divided attention. Silence, inner silence, and the kind you're cultivating, makes you more fully present, more able to be genuinely with another person, more capable of real contact, real listening, real meeting. And from that quality of genuine presence, something in relationships unlocks that all the effort and strategy and self-improvement in the world cannot manufacture. Trust, ease, the sense of being truly seen and of truly seeing. The feeling, rare and precious, of genuine connection. This is what silence builds in the field of relationship. Not from technique, not from effort, from the simple, profound act of becoming still enough to actually be here with another human being. The fourth thing that shifts is synchronicity. As the noise clears and the signal becomes cleaner, you begin to notice something that may at first seem coincidental. The right people appearing at the right time, the book that contains exactly the thing you needed to read, arriving in your hands by an unlikely route. The opportunity that emerges from a completely unexpected direction. The solution to a problem you'd been struggling with, arising fully formed in a moment of quiet. These are not coincidences. They are the field responding to a cleaner signal. As the interference clears, as the noise stops contaminating the broadcast, the precision of the reflection increases. The field can respond more accurately, more swiftly, more elegantly. And you can perceive the response because your narrowed, noise-contracted perception has opened. You are available to more of what is actually present, more of what the field is already offering. Synchronicity is not an extraordinary phenomenon reserved for special people or special moments. It is the normal operation of a reality that is always responsive to frequency. What changes is your ability to see it, to be available for it, to receive it. And that ability is built in silence. I know what some of you are thinking right now, because it's the same thing most people think when they first encounter the invitation to silence. This sounds beautiful, but my life is not quiet. I have children, a job, a phone that never stops, a world that doesn't pause. I can't sit in silence for 5 minutes without being needed. I can't quiet my mind. I've tried, it doesn't work for me. I hear you, and I want to address this directly because it matters. First, silence is not about your external circumstances. The deepest silence is not dependent on the absence of external noise. It is an inner orientation, a quality of awareness. And while a quiet external environment is certainly helpful, especially in the beginning of the practice, the silence itself is portable. It goes where you go. It is available in seed form, even in the loudest, most demanding moments of your life. Second, the practice of silence is not about perfection. It is not about achieving a perfectly quiet mind in your 5 minutes of formal practice and carrying that perfect quiet through every subsequent moment of your day. It is about direction, about the repeated, gentle, infinitely patient act of turning toward the stillness, even when the noise keeps returning, even when the 5 minutes feels more like 5 minutes of thinking than 5 minutes of silence, even when you forget for 3 days in a row and have to start again. The turning matters more than the arriving. The direction matters more than the destination. And the destination, it turns out, is simply the turning itself, is simply the choosing again and again to orient toward the ground rather than toward the noise. Third, I want to offer a reframe about busyness itself, because for many people, busyness is not just a circumstance. It is a relationship to silence. It is, in the deepest sense, a way of avoiding it. The person who is always busy, whose schedule is always full, whose mind is always occupied, whose to-do list never resolves, is often beneath the busyness, someone who is afraid of what they will find in the quiet, what will be there when the distraction clears, what they will feel when there is nothing to do and nowhere to go and no noise to hide behind. If this lands for you, if something in you recognizes this, I want to meet that recognition with gentleness, not judgment. What you fear finding in the silence is almost certainly not as terrible as the part of you that is afraid of it believes. The silence does not contain monsters. It contains feelings. Feelings that have been long unacknowledged, perhaps, but feelings nonetheless. Grief, perhaps, loneliness, a deep tiredness, an old longing. These are not dangers. These are the things that, when finally felt, finally metabolized, finally allowed to move through you rather than being perpetually blocked by noise and busyness. These are the things that, on the other side of being felt, give way to the ground of okayness we've been exploring all day. The silence is not empty. It is full of everything you've been too busy to feel, everything you've been too noisy to hear, and everything it contains is ultimately every last piece of it, workable, healable, transformable. It just needs you to arrive, to be willing to be there in the quiet without the noise to hide behind. And the reward for that willingness, The thing that waits on the other side of everything the silence holds is freedom. Not the freedom of a problem solved or a circumstance improved. The freedom of a being who has come home to their own ground, who has stopped running from themselves. Who knows? In their body, not just their head, that they are okay, that they were always okay, that the ground was always here, always steady, always holding them even when they didn't know it. That freedom is what we are building toward. One breath at a time, one moment of turning toward the silence, one quiet morning, one patient, gentle, consistent return. Let's close the circle on something important. We began today by talking about affirmations and their limitations. And I want to return there because I don't want to leave you with the impression that words, intentions, and conscious desires are useless. They are not. What they are is dependent. They are dependent on the soil beneath them, on the quality of the inner ground from which they arise. And that ground, that soil, is what silence cultivates. When your affirmation arises from genuine silence, when it emerges from the ground of okayness, spoken from the witness rather than from the noise, it carries a completely different frequency than the affirmation spoken from the midst of the noise. Think of it this way: a seed planted in healthy, fertile, nourished soil grows. The same seed planted in depleted, contaminated soil struggles or fails entirely. Silence is the preparation of the soil. It is the clearing of the noise, the healing of the carrier wave, the restoration of the inner ground to its natural fertility. And from that fertility, intention. Even very simple intention, even quietly held, even in a few words spoken from the ground of stillness, carries enormous power. This is the practice, fully integrated. You begin with silence. You cultivate the ground. You touch the stillness beneath the noise. You return to the awareness that is already peaceful, already whole, already the thing you've been trying to manufacture with effort. And then, from that ground, from that place of genuine embodied okayness, you hold your desire, not as a statement you force yourself to believe, not as a performance aimed at a watching universe, but as a gentle, open, grounded intention, a quiet knowing. This is what I am choosing. This is the quality of life I am stepping into. This is the frequency I am inhabiting. In the field, receiving that clear, uncontaminated ground-level signal responds, not to the words, to the frequency of the silence from which they arose. This is the whole practice. Silence first, intention from silence. Trust the field, and repeat. Not because it failed the first time, but because it is a practice, a living, breathing, daily, ordinary, extraordinary practice. The practice of being a conscious human being in conversation with reality, of shaping your experience from the inside out, of coming home day after day to the silence that is your own deepest nature. This is not difficult. It is simple. It is not simple in the sense of being easy, always, but simple in the sense of being clear. One direction, one practice, one return, toward the silence, toward the ground, toward yourself. Let me leave you with something to carry. Not a thought, an invitation. Before you sleep tonight, before the day finally releases you into rest, spend 3 minutes in genuine silence. Not thinking about silence, not planning your silence practice. Just 3 minutes of actually being still. Let whatever arises in those 3 minutes arise. Let whatever needs to be felt, be felt. Let the noise do what it does, and let yourself be the awareness that is watching it. Already quiet, already whole, already home. And if in those 3 minutes you touch even a single moment of the ground, even one breath in which the noise is slightly quieter, and the stillness slightly more audible. Let that be enough. Let that be more than enough. Because it is. That moment is the practice. That moment is the signal. That moment, broadcast into the field with genuine presence and genuine stillness, does more than any affirmation ever could. Because it is not a word about your wholeness. It is the wholeness itself, awake and broadcasting. In the field, always, without exception, with perfect precision, reflects it back. If these conversations are resonating with you, if this space feels like somewhere you want to return to, I warmly invite you to subscribe, not to consume more content, but to stay in this frequency, to keep the appointment with your own ground. These explorations continue, and each one builds on what came before. The subscribe button is right below. One click, and this space will keep finding you when you need it. Drop a word in the comments that captures what silence means to you right now, or what you most want to find there. Your word is your signal. Your signal is your beginning. I'll see you in the next conversation. Take care of your silence today. It is the most fertile ground you have.